So say, like for me, say you're a gym brand, you need to work out. So we're going to do 1 post a week on the gym wear. We're going to do 1 post a week on workouts. We're going to do 1 post a week on post-workout foods, or what I have had in a day, because that's your inside scoop. That's your personality, because you're showing what you've eaten in a day. You don't have to do that. It's not really anything to do with business. But people are getting the inside scoop and the personality. And then within that, you're showing your gym wear, you're showing your gym supplements, whatever it is, and people are going, so where did you get those leggings from? Where did you get those supplements from? And it's about organically adding your products into it.
I like to call my unlimited content matrix, and essentially you break your business down into 4 pillars, right? You're welcome. Before I even start, you break your business down into 4 pillars. You say, okay, let's say for example it's Crunches by Susie. She has really likes, fashion, right? She really likes hair, and there's another 2. So you break down hair and fashion, and you get their keywords. So you say, okay, fashion, we have models, we have material, we have this, that, and the other. And then for each of those keywords, you'd break that down into the who, what, when, where, how, and why.
Sustainable happens quickly. Nothing. Like very few of you can show me an example of something that is sustainable, that is built quickly. I look at a plant. You look at a tree. Look, the biggest tree in the forest here. How long has it been there for? Thousands of years. It's not coincidence. You look at buildings. How long did they build a building? How long does it stay standing for? Look at a baby. If a baby is born too soon, it's at risk of dying. Everything in life. There's not one thing in life here that can happen quickly and is sustainable. So when I tell you the post here for the next 6 months here, that's me using the laws of life and nature and what we see around us to understand here that nothing in life that is built quickly is sustainable.
I love the psychology of it. And I think sometimes with digital marketing, we forget that it's the same thing. It's just using different platforms, and the speed in which the digital platforms allow us to market to our audience compared to traditional offline is just incomparable. It's just crazy fast. And also the accessibility of how many people we can reach. And so it can be quite overwhelming when we think about the bigger picture of digital marketing, but really when it comes down to it, it's about the psychology that we've always known. And that goes right back to, hey, I've got some of these carrots. I've noticed that you haven't got any carrots. What about these? Should we swap some carrots for some of your potatoes? So it's about the psychology of somebody wanting or needing something and then somebody else being able to provide.
We call it edutainment. So it's education and entertainment. And don't be scared by the entertainment word, because entertainment is broad. Anyone can find anything interesting. It doesn't need to be humorous or anything like that. Teach us about this, and you can do that with a hook. So one tip for video content is you need to capture someone's attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds. You need a hook, and that hook it needs to draw in that person. So on TikTok, you can write a cover title on your video. If your service is beneficial in some way, a hook on that cover title could be, this is what really saves me time when I'm ... That's a hook, because now I want to know what saves you time. So this is where services can really play up to, how is this beneficial for you? Why should you be parting money? How can this change my routine in the best way possible? So that is everything that they need to be pushing.
Good morning, everyone. You probably just got a glimpse of our megastar that we've got on today, and you weren't meant to. But good morning. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of UKBF Talks. Today, we're going to be focusing on all things LinkedIn. And with the rise of things such as TikTok and Instagram, LinkedIn is something that at times is getting missed out, but we know, and I know, it's still a powerful tool to be used. And there's no other better person that I know currently to speak to on this very topic and this very subject than Mr. Richard Moore. So let's bring him in. I hope you like that intro. So you better give me a nice little check for that.
I've got big shoes and I'm happy to fill them.
There we go. There we go. So Richard, before we crack on, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. And for the record, there's a bit of a delay, isn't there, Jacob? So this should be fun, but we'll do our best. So
Yes, a slight delay.
I help people specifically with the conversion part of working with their content. I did 10 years in the city in London, ultimately ending as a sales director, and I was selling online propositions mostly. And then 10 years ago, I left the city and started my own consultancy. And I've been helping people with getting their deals over the line, originally with Facebook, then Instagram, and for 5.5 years now with LinkedIn. And I run a number of programs that help people with that. But it's that next bit that a lot of people really need, isn't it? It's the frustration they hit where, you know, they're getting their posts, they're doing their content, they're building their brand, but there's no one stepping forward. So it's the nuance and the little things that can help that make people decide, you know what, I'd like to get in touch with this person. So going through those kind of tactics and plays, I'm looking forward to helping you with today, Jacob. So thank you for having me on here.
There we go. No, that's absolutely brilliant. Honestly, the honor and the privilege is all ours. So before we get on and carry on, if you've got any questions throughout this conversation, do go ahead, put it in the chat, and we'll do our best to ask Richard whilst we've got him here. But you probably heard the first thing I said before we started, Richard, which was we've got the rise of TikTok. We've got the rise of, or the magnitude of what Instagram has become.
Yep.
Why is LinkedIn still such an important tool and a factor for businesses? And why should people be excited about the proposition of LinkedIn?
Such a good question. And I think a really good way to look at it is that LinkedIn should be seen as this sleeping giant. And what I mean by that is all the people who are going to be buying from you, business to business, they all joined, 10, 12, 15 years ago or whatever, and they've been on there a long time. And so what you've got is a cultural understanding and context that LinkedIn is about business. And so the buyers are already there. What's really exciting is if you look at these other platforms that all have their place 100%, and as the buyers start to become younger and younger, they are becoming more and more relevant. What's interesting is that with LinkedIn, it's moved from being a place where really it was your resume or CV, as we say here, and it's changed to become more of a content play. So when in 2016, when Microsoft bought it for a bargain, 26 billion they paid for it, what's fascinating is that they've started adding these features where you can go live, you can start adding your carousels and videos and polls and all that kind of thing. And bringing all that together, what it means is that it's now a versatile platform. But the truth, remember, is that everyone's still there. And I think the big takeaway around this, to really kind of prove the point that it's worth considering seriously, is that relatively speaking, on LinkedIn, it's silent. There's so many billions of impressions every week, but relatively few millions of pieces of content. So essentially, everyone's watching, everyone's listening, but very few people, relative to the other platforms, are actually making any noise. So if you're thinking of getting onto it now, you're still in quite early. And that's why algorithmically as well, it tends to be a very healthy place to grow organically. So there's the context of business, the fact that all your buyers are there, but also that very few people are actually using it because they're not thinking of it when it comes to social media plays. But Microsoft have given that kind of backing, if you like, and LinkedIn has really stepped into the content limelight. And it's very hard to miss when you have the right context. So yeah, really good question. Hope that answers it.
Yeah, I think you've built up a great platform to carry on from there.
I should be on commission from LinkedIn, I think, shouldn't I?
I get. Yeah, no, you should. So my first question is to you: what are the key strategies to optimize a generic LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I think you're going to get, if you ask 5 people, you get 8 different answers to this kind of thing. There's a lot of different ways to doing it. So a really good way to look at it is thinking about, from a sales perspective, onboarding clients, where does it sit in the process? There's 2 ways your profile is going to get found, which helps answer this question. One is through search, and that's hard, and you're not going to get found much. And if you've got whatever you do as your title, you're going to get found with everyone else. It's far better to be found through content. You get far more people looking at you that way. So the process we want is to understand is that we have a 3-stage way of bringing people into buying. So it starts with attention, it moves to traffic, and then we have conversion. Attention is your content. And if there's curiosity or intrigue, or you're stimulating people, they're clicking on you and landing on your profile. So to answer this question, we need to understand that context. They're into you, and you said something that stimulated. Now they're on the profile, what you need to be doing first and foremost is helping them understand that you solve a particular problem they may have. Now, for the majority, you don't solve their problem, but for some you will. And my strong advice is, understand what humans are going to do first. Job 1, they'll look at your profile picture to make a judgment on if you seem welcoming and accommodating. So have a nice warm picture. Have a second point is have a decent banner. Here's what I do. Here's the problem I solve. And of course, make sure that you've got, a bit about maybe a call to action or how people can work with you. But then your title, I strongly advise people have the problem that they solve. And when you meet people on that first click, that essentially landing page with, here's the problem I solve for people, you're instantly segmenting that audience of profile views, that traffic, into, oh, okay, not so relevant, and, oh, that's actually quite useful for me. And so that's crucial, because then that's going to make people want to indulge, go further, and look at your featured links, which you should have, which we can cover more later, and your bio, and of course then get in touch. So understanding that context, you're dealing with traffic now from your posts, so you need to be servicing them right away with the answer to the question, which is, but how can you help me? Way before learning about your story and things like that.
So when it now comes to psychology within literally what you just said, and preempting what people may do and may want to see, do people need to go and read books on how to do this, or does it take a level of practice to fine tune this process?
In terms of building up a profile, or how do you mean? In terms of understanding the bigger sales process?
In terms of building a profile, and then for it to ultimately lead to people warming up to you and growing a credible trust with somebody that's never probably met you before.
Yeah, okay, so good point. No, you don't have to read a lot of books. The right thing to do is to spend some time with yourself and think, in the quiet, what do people who probably are exhibiting the symptoms of the problem I solve for them think? Like, what are the issues they have? Speak to that set of symptoms through content so that they find your profile, and then in turn be clear that you understand and have an awareness of those problems in your profile, in the bio, for instance, in the about section, that you know what you're doing to be able to fix it, and that you have credibility that you've done this before, or you've worked with such companies as X or Y or Z. And then crucially, you want to deal with that traffic from people who maybe have seen you a bit and decide then what to do next, and that's conversion. So 2 very important things to be doing with the profile at that point to deal with that traffic is 1 proactive and 1 reactive. The reactive one first is you want to give people signposts for where they go next. such as you can DM me for more on this, or in the featured links, here's a link to download my lead magnet, or here's a link in my featured links to apply for more information from me, or here's my landing page, and so on. Or the proactive thing, which is where the business really is you go to your analytics, you click on who's viewed my profile. This is a daily task we should all be doing, and you check in and see who has exhibited conscious curiosity. So when someone has said to themselves, do you know what, I want to have a look at this profile, it's conscious curiosity. And LinkedIn says, this person looked at your profile, name, job title, company, 2 hours ago, and I want to reach out to those people. You don't need books for this, you just need to think, where are they? They're either looking at my profile, so I give them somewhere to go, or they're looking at my profile and disappearing, so I'm going to get in touch and ask, firstly, say thank you for looking at my profile, but ask, is there anything that caught your eye? Okay? There's some simple daily tasks there, and that's where your nurture begins to get that person saying, do you know what? Yeah, I would like to share a bit more about what I was looking for or how you might be able to help me.
Gosh, this is very, very practical. Very, very practical.
And I must say, and it feels like I'm team LinkedIn, I'm on but the truth is, I did Instagram and I did Facebook, bless them. But like, it's a long time ago where on Facebook you could see who looked at your profile. There's a lot of people here who probably don't remember, but in 2004, when I joined Facebook, you could see who was looking at your profile. But of course, people were like, whoa, everyone's going to know if I'm stalking my ex-girlfriend. So Facebook took that down. But on LinkedIn, it's still there. And on LinkedIn, it's like, I can see specifically the person and when they looked at me. And I, right now, literally at time of speaking, am getting some profile views. And so are you. Because they're like, who's this Richard guy? If they're following UKBF. Or if they're following me, they'll be like, who's this Jacob guy? And they'll be looking at our profiles. And it's so interesting that if you say something stimulating in your content, just look at your profile views, it'll spike, and those people are looking at your profile because you said something interesting. And that's this psychology right there. Humans revere status, and humans are curious, sometimes to test, to check if you're a threat or a bit of an idiot, or maybe to make themselves feel good about themselves by seeing if they can take you down. Some people look at you in a toxic way, but then other people are like, this guy's brilliant. He just nailed that point. Who is he? And so it's worth checking them out. And those lurkers, as they're fondly known, are really, really important to connect with and ask, what caught their eye, because there's deals right there. And it's crazy to miss those people coming into your profile under your nose.
This is the good stuff. This is leading me into my next question. So right. How can you effectively utilize groups to expand first your network and also drive potential sales?
Good question. So groups have a bad reputation because what happens is someone gets very excited one day, builds a group, shoves loads of people in it, and treats it as a fishing pond. and the thing is, nothing happens, and everyone kind of dies off after a while, and they have all of these members, but no activity. So in 2015, and it's the same principle here, but in 2015, I started a group on Facebook called the Entrepreneur Business Group, and there are over 4,000 people who came into it. And if you're going to use groups yourself, you need to look for the active ones. And now I want to be really clear about this. Active doesn't mean lots of posts, because most groups descend into no actual activity other than people spamming the group with their own posts. And it's just like a posting frenzy and you don't get anything. When you run your own group, I think you've got better control. So if you can find a group that has proper activity, then great. But in a LinkedIn group of your own, which I kind of run one, but not so much on LinkedIn, the key part is every day, can you stimulate a conversation? And I don't run a LinkedIn group as such, but my advice for those who are interested is, aside from what I've just said, the idea is the kind of the concept or the value behind it for you is that when you post a piece of content, it goes to the newsfeed and you're accessing an audience publicly, right? With a group, you've got that kind of closed, more intimate audience, and they're all yours. And so you can like really warm a set of people who have decided to join in. And so my strong advice is be careful, because if you're going to do one, you need to commit. And I was very committed to my group. I was posting daily. I was getting people involved. I had a VA who was doing the rounds and like cajoling people into action. But groups don't tend to do so incredibly well unless you're really committing to them. But what you're looking for is cues. Are people responding to these questions or these posts with, actually, yeah, that's the thing I struggle with? Or, oh, wow, Richard, I think you do that really well. And so if you have struggles or compliments, that signifies that you can maybe look at that person, get into the DMs and start the process of conversion with them. So again, more of that later, but I think it's a really valuable thing to consider. But groups are hard, and with LinkedIn, really, your own profile and content can be more than sufficient, I find.
No, that's really interesting to hear. Something that I've noticed myself is we make at times really beautiful, appealing, cracking content, and we look for groups that have our audience in, that have got, let's say, 50,000 people that we believe give a crap about what we have to offer.
Yes.
And we put our stuff in those groups, and literally we don't get any response, we don't get any traction, we don't get any comments. And it always surprises me why that is, but literally what you just said there answers that.
So look at what humans actually do. And then we've all been in this situation. We see a group, oh, that's interesting. And most people ignore groups, but there might be a day in the year when you're just feeling it, in the mood. You're like, I quite like to be in a community with people. That looks relevant, I'll join it. And then nothing really happens, and it's not particularly stimulating, and people just seem to be spamming their own events or their own sales or whatever, and so you just ignore it. And most people can't be bothered to leave, which is why you have a big disconnect, but typically with groups, between the volume of people who are members and the actual engagement in it. The engagement is 0.00000% because no one's bothering, because they just can't be bothered to exit, and so they just stay in the group, but they're just ignoring it completely. And so I think the other side of this, which is why personal branding content has become such a popular thing in recent years, is that it's that trust thing. Groups sit somewhere between the person themselves and a company profile page, because it's like, it's a group, and but when it's a person, you really you feel like you're connected more to that guy or that woman who's saying that thing, and you just believe like that there's someone at the end of that rather than a big group, if that makes sense. So you often find it's this loss of personality, and it becomes more of a bulletin board, and people don't want to be there. Like nowadays, we've all learned through being online enough that we like being with our tribes where it feels like there's real people. And that's why, despite all the tools we've got, in real life, in-person networking events still work incredibly well, because people like being around real people, which is why there's a little bubble that's gonna burst soon around AI commenting, where a lot of people are starting to use it, and there'll be pushback. A lot of people are going to use it. The bubble will pop soon, because I can already see people like, you can spot a mile off the AI comments. And what happens is people just, I'm already doing it, you just ignore them completely. And what happens is the humans stick together, and I'm loving AI, by the way, but just on this point, humans stick together because they like to know they're interacting with another human, and so it's just fascinating to see. It'll be interesting to see how that develops too. But the short answer here is it's almost, unless you're doing a group properly, save your time and focus on doing it right with your profile.
No, this is good. We've got loads of questions coming in so far. just want to let you know that, guys, I'm going to get through my questions first before I feed your questions to Richard. So just bear with me, because I'm sure some of my questions will also answer some of the questions that you've got as well. You touched on personal branding there, and what is the power of personal branding, especially on LinkedIn, and how does someone begin the process of building a personal brand?
Let me answer that in reverse. So the way you begin is you just start and recognize you're going to suck. No one will look and you won't know what you're talking about to a degree. And so that's how I started. And you can have a plan and all that kind of thing, and you can strategize for days, but you do end up needing to get on the pitch, right? And so what I mean by this is it's good to say, well, I'm probably going to talk about this thing, and I'm probably going to hit these points for probably this audience who probably have this set of problems. And I'm using the word probably a lot because it's through consistency and posting regularly and beating the single drum of the thing you talk about that moves you to a place where you start to really understand what you actually stand for. Because you have to hear yourself saying it a lot, and you have to have the response from the audience. And over time you evolve and iterate and become the person you outwardly and online that you probably are meant to be. And then you become known for that. And that really is this value of building the personal brand, because it comes from you. And so we have a couple of things in play with your audience. And what that is a level of expertise and knowledge about a thing that you've been talking about a lot against you, a personality that many people don't dig, but some might really like. And the idea of joining the two is wonderful because you end up with knowledge and expertise from someone where some audience members will think, I love how that person said that. That's absolutely like resonating with me. He or she's the one I'm going to buy from, for instance. So that's the value of it there. And if I give you a sense of what's possible, since 2018, I've been running in-person networking events, so called Entrepreneur Business Live, and they're like a £10 entry, which all goes to charity. I've run them around the world, so New York, LA, Barcelona, London, wherever. And what's wonderful is because I have some like trust built with that audience, and because they see me and dig what I have to say against a certain set of topics, I can do a couple of posts saying, hey, it's this date and here's the people who are going to be there, and we'll fill a room. And it's about traction, you know. And if I launch a product tomorrow, I have traction already. And it's fascinating when I think back to my days selling internet marketing almost 20 years ago, that I would often get this rejection from businesses of, oh, well, we'll do all that. We'll do all that once the product's ready, which is the biggest error ever. It's, you know, warm your audience, show them you've got an area of expertise so that when you want to go live with your service or product, they're already there for you. A great example is this live stream. The post went up earlier this week. We already had a bunch of people saying, oh, cool, that looks really good. I'll tune in for that. And there's personal brand at work. Rather than you and I having a chat and no one watching, we've got, 100 people watching at any one time or something like that. And it's just really a case of having familiarity with that person combined with knowledge. But it gets easier. And over time, it's that value of consistency and compounding effect of beating the same drum. But if you deviate too much because, I just want to do this viral post and copy this video from this site and post that instead, or put up a picture of a cute puppy, I run the risk of being interesting for masses but not being clear about what it is I stand for. So you do need to stay totally in lane as much as you can.
What if somebody doesn't have an area of expertise, but they've just got the passion and the zeal to put themselves out there? Would you say that person needs to educate themselves to a level, or should they go on the process of educating whilst they put themselves out there?
I'm a massive fan of the latter. the reason why is you get practice too. So a really good example is I ran a live stream every Monday, every week for 260 weeks. So that's 5 years, every Monday, Startup Business Q&A. And it helped me really hone my philosophy, as I said earlier, and really kind of have a sense of what it was I was into. And I was being general because originally, this was years and years ago, it was like 2015 or so, but I was doing live streaming then because I was like, I kind of like helping people, with selling, but also I've just got some good common sense because I've helped build businesses. And so those who don't know what they're doing would pay for that. And I was getting clients that way. But through answering, I think we worked out it was something like 2,000 questions. I was like, do you know what? I'm really good at the bit around conversion. And I've done selling and that just feels right. And it helped me zone in more and more and more. But in doing it, I became better at answering questions. I became more known by people and got onto more interviews like this so I could answer them even more. And I got better at producing content and so on. Just, you cannot ever outperform being on the pitch through thinking and study. Really, you can't. Over time, you cannot lose if you are just testing and testing. And, so make mistakes. So be slightly wrong. It's good to evolve whilst building, as opposed to sitting on the benches, spectating and thinking too much. So I'm a strong believer in action. It tends to get you things.
I love the football analogy there.
You're a fan of football. There you go. It works.
Going to move on to the Arsenal.
Oh, okay. No comment.
All right. What are the best practices for crafting compelling, engaging LinkedIn posts that attract potential customers?
Yeah. So there's a number of types of posts that can work. Just consider the context again. The psychology is essential. The state of your audience when they receive your content is probably fairly cold, passive audience member. They're scrolling through they're through their news feed. They're not looking for heavy content. They tend to be looking a lot more for a quick win, something valuable, something to pass the time with, right? They're having a break after all. That's why they're looking at content. And what I want you to consider is how you're going to set yourself aside from the pack. So a really great example of the kind of post I like to do is a reframe post. And the point of a reframe post comes from the word reframe, which is the frame someone looks at the world through. Is I want to say, how you think this about, in my case, conversion on LinkedIn. Well, actually, here's a thing you're missing. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I hook them in, but also make them leave that post thinking to themselves, no wonder I wasn't getting the results I was after because I hadn't been doing it that way. Or I didn't realize that was possible. So what I'm trying to do a lot of is think to myself, what's the mainstream set of beliefs that someone has about my space that actually aren't quite right? And I'm tuning into that and making sure my posts are showing awareness of what they're going through. There we're back on symptoms of their problems, but saying, have you realized that there's this iteration or revision or evolution on what people are actually doing? And of course you can do it any way you like. You can use video or, text or you can do text and image and things like that, or a carousel. They're all blowing up at the moment. But what's really essential is you make people think differently. Reposting other people's stuff is a waste of time. Both algorithmically, your posts won't do as well, but also you're just sharing other people's stuff. There aren't really shortcuts. The best thing to do is to express yourself as that person with some expertise, and just constantly be thinking to yourself, what is it that people seem to think is true that actually they're missing the point on slightly? Because when you can reframe someone's beliefs like that, or make someone think to themselves, now that's a different way of looking at it, they associate that idea with you. That puts any competition over here and you out here on your own. and you're seen as a higher thinker that way. It's really important to be asking yourself, how do I sound different? How am I unique? But actually, is the better way to do it is to say, what's the thing people think is true but not? So if I may give an example, the general consensus or narrative, if you speak to most people about social media, you probably had this already in interviews, and I'll bet you'll have them again, Jacob, is they say, well, you have to work on your brand, man. And you have to get more followers, and you have to always try and do X, Y, and Z to get a greater reach and impressions and engagement, because you know that will sort everything out. And so my thing a lot of the time is saying, you know how everyone tells you to focus on following and reach and engagement, but how you're still broke. It's because what you're not learning is the nuances around conversion. And yes, more followers and yes, more reach will get you probably some more sporadic opportunities, but you shouldn't be getting thousands of views every week of your content and no deals out of that. How are thousands of people not converting? It's conversion you need to focus on. And what I'm trying to do is create this light bulb moment for people saying to themselves, like, that's the really good point. And what I have so much is people saying, do you know what? I am frustrated because I'm doing course after course and listening to guru after creator after guru, all telling me to work on my brand and following, when the truth is I have enough already. I've already got, 500 followers. I've already got people looking at my posts. What I don't know is what to say without scaring them off, or where to look, or how to get them to say, do you know what? I would like to learn more. That's the bit where I win, because I have people going, yeah, I am frustrated actually. And in fact, it seems the problem isn't my post getting more views. It's actually, I don't know what I'm doing with the very people who are looking at me right now. And so I'm just constantly asking people to think to themselves, what is it your customers aren't thinking that, they're thinking something else? You need to change that frame. So that can permeate any type of post, but that's the big one. Yes, you can do how-tos. Yes, you can do observations. And of course you can do storytelling, but within it, like, this is, for me, the central type of post that works.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm just going to rattle through a few audience questions. We've got quite a few here before I carry on. We've got a question here saying that I'm posting on LinkedIn, but how do I know who's listening or watching? Okay, so obviously you can't look at literally all of the people who have actually engaged, who have actually looked at it, and it's a little bit entry level to think, well, if someone's commented, then that's my audience. That's not enough. We want to go deeper. So what you've got to ask yourself is, if I can make a stimulating piece of content, the real sign of if someone A has looked at it and B is interested, because that's what you want, that's proper pre-qualification, is that very soon after I'm getting that person checking out my profile. Profile views tend to go up when you do a good bit of content. That's as good as it's going to get. Unfortunately, you can't click on impressions and see all of the people who have looked at it. And like I say, that actually wouldn't be helpful enough anyway, because that just means it's landed on their news feed. Far better is to say to yourself, like, I want to know who's looked at this content and found it interesting enough that they decided to consciously click over to the profile. So what I'm doing is I'm checking my profile views in the hours after posting, because probably they saw me from that content. So I send them a connection note. Hi Jacob, I just saw you looked at my profile a little earlier. Thank you so much. Was there anything that caught your eye? Or what made you decide to look at it? Because remember, it was a conscious click. That's the better answer, because now I've got an in terms of a conversation. That's a starter. They will respond. They'll be like, oh, well, it's because I saw that bit of content earlier. Great qualification now. And so it's natural and reasonable to say, well, thank you. What was it about the content that you liked? So we're isolating the thing they did. They looked at my content, isolating it, and now saying, like, I'm probing. Tell me, what was it about that? Because they might be like, oh, it was really good.
right? Why was it really good? Or what about it was really good? What or why based questions. That's all I'm doing. And I'll say, and then it makes them think. People love this because you've joined them on their journey. You've not gone cold to them and gone, hi, I do a thing, would you like to buy it? Instead, they'll now share, well, it's because you were saying that thing. And I found that really fascinating. And of course, then I've got something of their need, and I can now work towards the pivot to a phone call. So the question's asking, how can I see who's looking at my content? But actually, I can see who's been looking at my content kind of indirectly, but it's a better answer or a better question to ask, who can I see who's interested in me as a result of my content? So I hope that answers the question.
That's so good. Another question here is, what do you think about posting from a page rather than a personal profile?
I stick with your profile. This is a really short answer to this. The page algorithmically doesn't do nearly as well. A bit like with a group, if you have a very, very engaged set of people really into your company page, great. And the analytics are good. And you can feed them a bit of content every so often. But come on, think about trust. Humans trust humans more than like logos in companies. And of course, some companies have better branding and trust and things like that. But really, you need a figurehead, and that figurehead has to be a person. If you look at the top left of this screen, we've got UKBF. For some people, that logo means warmth and opportunity and so much. But for others who don't know it so well, or who are like not so clear on it at all, if they see that logo behind a post or that logo behind a comment, it's not accessible like a human face is. And that underpins that one of the main reasons why content on company pages doesn't perform as well. And certainly for the entrepreneur, solopreneur set, you should be leaning hard into organic profile content, because that's the one simply that gets the love in the news feed. It's been shown, the tests have been done as well. Content produced by a personal profile, significantly outperforms that produced in the news feed, of course, produced by a company page. So you can stop doing it.
That's good. That's good. How can you make generic content posted on LinkedIn more engaging? Do you have to put yourself in the buyer's shoes, or understand the industry?
So how can we make generic? I think this is a question that comes up a lot when people are saying things like, how can I make boring stuff interesting as well? And I think a really good thing to do is really spend some time asking yourself, how can I display awareness excuse me, of what my audience is experiencing? So you can be more engaging when you really are speaking to the audience. And what that means is write down on a piece of paper quotes from people like customers that you've spoken to before. What do they say? One of the ones I've used for years that I remember someone once saying was, Richard, all my friends think I'm crushing it on LinkedIn, but I'm broke, I don't have any customers. And that it just encapsulates perfectly what people tend to be going through who are frustrated here. So what I'm doing is I'm using quotes like that a lot in my posts. Like, you know how you feel like this? You know how this is the thing that's on your mind? Even in my bio, if you look on my profile, it's like these are the things you're thinking to yourself. And for those who I'm trying to court, they'll be thinking, that's exactly how I'm thinking. You're in my head. That's exactly right. So showing awareness is big. The other thing is just look at hooks. It's so important, because what most people do with a piece of content is they do have a decent central thesis. They do have something interesting to share. However, it never gets read because the top of that post isn't stimulating enough. So if you have a post with an asset, carousel, image, video, or whatever, you see 3 lines of text. So you need to have a first line that is a hook that stops the scroll. then a line break for readability, so nothing there. Then the third line should be a tease, something else that makes them want to click on see more, open up the post. And LinkedIn monitors dwell time, so how much time is spent on that post. Now, their post with an asset, if you have no asset, if the post is text only, you see 5 lines. And what's crucial about that is you like thinking to yourself, what do I write that stops the scroll? So if you're starting posts with, well, you're making it generic with things like, I hope everyone's having a lovely day, or happy Wednesday, everyone. It's like, well, that's like everything else. Well, I'll scroll on to the next one. People want to be stimulated. They want to learn. They want to laugh. They want to find something scandalous. So you have to be a little bit sensationalist. You know, you're writing a headline a bit like a newspaper. The reason why headlines are big and short, and that's a whole profession on the newspaper, is so it catches your eye as you walk past it. That's the idea. So it's worth looking at what good hooks look like. You can't help yourself. If you go to Google, you just write in 50 top hooks for posts, you'll find thousands of them. So I really think that's the bit that needs to be changed. And inverted commas, dull or dry industries or topics become very interesting when there's better hooks, because they're like, oh, that's a really clever thing you've just said. And now they're interested in what you're saying a bit more, and you get read. So there's an element of putting yourself in their shoes, Dan. That's a really good question. But I think you need to understand that often it's actually just that your posts at the start, they might just suck, might just not be interesting enough to stop people who is in the motion of, you know, scrolling along, makes them go, oh, hang on, what's this? Because it's their subconscious just scrolling. They're in that habit of scrolling. So if you're boring, you ain't going to get anyone interested in you. So it's got to be more the hooks that tends to make the difference. But when you've hooked them and they're clicked on see more, you need to stimulate them to stick around, and that's awareness. I know what you're thinking. I know you're going through this thing. Then show them the light. Because what you're doing is you're saying, I know you're having this problem. You're in this dark place. Here's this way out. And I was there myself, or I've helped people there myself. But there's a way out. And then something of a call to action, for instance, or a call to feel and comment and share something, because you want to stimulate a conversation. More conversation in the in the comments means the LinkedIn sends your post to more people and the process starts again. Really good question.
No, that's really good. Whilst you were just talking there, when it comes to graphics, visuals, videos, what should we do? What performs better? Videos or stills or carousels?
So LinkedIn is a constant, like, goalposts are moving all the time, and algorithmic tweaks, as you get on any other platform, change things a lot. Often when there's new features, they get a bit more love, for instance. But there is a pecking order right now, and king of the hill, the top one for like reach and engagement and so on, is carousels. So what I mean by carousels is, it's like one of those sliders, a number of images. Like if you have lots of pictures together, you get them on Instagram and you can slide across, but you upload that as what's known as a document. It's a PDF file. They are king. They have a lot of dwell time. People spend time on them, and they tend to get great engagement and great reach. Second for me is text plus an image. But with a caveat, it's not 2015 anymore, so you can't get away with stock images or a model pretending to be in business or something staged. People like a little bit more authenticity now, so that's why we've had the rise of the selfies, and people feel like you're a bit more in the room with them. But an image that's, you know, related to that text tends to perform next best. Third is text, just text only. LinkedIn is a place where people tend to read. They're not there watching vids as much. Way further down the list is the likes of video, live stream. Polls did really well, so you know, voting for different things, but they don't do as well because people are kind of a bit fed up of them, it seems. But I do think polls are absolutely a play worth keeping in mind. If I was only doing 4 posts a week, I would be doing a carousel, text and image, text and a poll. They would be the 4 types. Video, I want to be really clear here. It doesn't mean video doesn't work or is rubbish. It's just relative to the others, video is not nearly as good for like distribution and engagement. But you know, it's the same rules apply as anywhere else. If you see a carousel, a slider kind of asset on Instagram, and you want to look at it, it's because it's got a stimulating first cover, and it, you know, makes you want to click onto the next slide and scroll through. If you see a video on TikTok and it stimulates you to watch the whole thing, or on YouTube, it's because it's short and it grabs you. And it doesn't, you know, videos that fail, it's the same anywhere. They're the ones that start with, "Hi everyone, my name's Richard Moore, and I wanted to hop on today to tell you about something that I was thinking about." And like, I've lost 8 seconds already, and that's the bit I should be grabbing people on. So it needs to hook and stimulate right away, you know. And there's plenty of stuff about attention spans and that, but you tend to find if you're doing video, 30 to 45 seconds, as expected, is enough. Get to the point and make it exciting or interesting or stimulating at the start, and you go from there. So it's weird how a lot of people from other platforms often say, "Oh, hey Richard, I'm from YouTube," or "I'm from Instagram. How is it wildly different on LinkedIn?" And the answer is it's not really. It's the same rules apply, because you've got the human animals needing stimulation immediately. But in terms of formats and algorithm, that's the pecking order, if you like, for types of posts that perform best.
Very, very insightful. Gosh, there's so many questions coming in, and I've still got quite a few questions myself
I'm
to
going to
get
shorten
through.
my answers. We'll try and get through them.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to put your questions to the side for now. I'll come back to them, and I'm going to go through mine. So how do you identify and connect with the right prospects on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so there's 2 types of people you should be connecting with quickly, just before we get into prospects. One is obviously prospects, but the other is people that will help distribute you. If I'm connecting with people who are big, who have an active audience, when they show up for my content, if we get on well, that will help give it a kick and get it sent out to more people in my network and theirs. So that is crucial as well. But here's a really great play, because of time, here's a really good play to find people who right now are correct, as in the right kind of prospects, but also are actively showing they want help with a thing. So you go to advanced search, or just search in LinkedIn, and you type some keywords related to your space. So for instance, I help people with conversion, so I might write something like social selling, okay? And now I'm going to hit search and then filter by events. And what happens is I get the latest events relating to social selling. When I do that, I might have one that comes up that's like Social Selling 101, 451 attendees. And so that event will be a recent event, as in like it's coming in the next day or two. All of the events that come up are going to be very soon, and they're live events on LinkedIn. And those attendees, again, look at context, those attendees are people who are active, otherwise they wouldn't have decided to attend, who have clearly got a need or a level of intrigue, and have said to themselves, I need something so much, I'm actually going to look for an event. That one looks good, I'm going to go to that, and I'll probably learn something. So you've got amazing pre-qualification there of these people wanting to learn something. So what I want to do is attend the event, hit attend, and now the number of attendees becomes a clickable link of like this, a list of all these attendees. And there are your prospects, because you work your way through them, and you don't sell to them straight away, otherwise you'll annoy everyone, including the host. What you do is you say, right, managing director or CEO of this company who's interested in learning about social selling, I'll go to his or her profile and I'll click on connect. And when it says, do you want to send a note? I'll say yes, not an in-mail, just a note. And I'll say, hi, Jacob. I see you're also going to the event on Thursday about social selling. I'll be there. Would love to connect. Because I've got that I've got that thing we're doing together, he or she will probably be like, yeah, sure, let's happily connect, no problem. And now, because I tend to get a reply to that as well as a connection acceptance, because we've had that interaction, firstly, I've added a connection who is a good looking prospect and active and probably has a need to my connections. But secondly, LinkedIn pays attention to my interactions. Guess whose content that person's going to see next? They'll probably be sent some of my content, because LinkedIn's thinking, if you looked at Richard and you've been speaking, well, then it makes sense you're probably interested in his posts. So what I'm doing is I'm adding these prospects to the very top of funnel and trusting that my content will then warm them a bit. And then we're back to where we were. They look at the content the next day. Imagine I check my profile views and a woman who's running a company who I connected with in the way I've just described the previous day, then had looked at my profile. She's probably seen my content too. That's really good qualification. And that's how you add quality prospects who are active. Remembering that half of all of the 900 million people on here don't even use LinkedIn each month. Half of them are though. And that's how we tap into it. So I'm asking myself, where are the people who are doing things, and what are, I need their inclinations, and that's how I find them. So when I'm doing that, I'm adding people who have a need, and it's really hard to miss. Just a bit of advice, don't do thousands a day because you're going to get banned for overuse. If you just did, genuinely, 5 of those a day, which everyone listening to this has got time for, if you did 5 a day, that's not much, but across a month, that's 100. 100 qualified people starting to see the content, starting to be warmed. Many of them will, when they get that connection note, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll be there too. Nice to meet you. Who's Richard? And they'll click on your profile, which better be set up because that's essentially your landing page. That is your connection strategy each day. It doesn't have to be more complex than that. It's that combined with who else has looked at my profile, who decided to follow me, which ones do I want to connect with? And if no one's looking at you, so make your content more interesting. It's not it's actually really simple. It's about attraction. You can see how I'm bringing that trafficking now, but I don't want to be doing cold outreach to people who don't have a clue who I am, unless I've got that really good reason for them to say, oh yeah, I should connect with you. And there's great leverage with that event. So that is, in my question, the best play. Rather than just doing a search for managing directors in North America who run a business of this size, because they don't want to hear from you because you've got no you've got no leverage. Whereas if they're doing a thing that you're also doing, well, at least you've got a talking point. And that I've taught this for many years, and people are like, they get 70, 80% acceptance rate. That's a game changer, that one. If people aren't doing it, that's where you find your proper audience. And again, every time your post is getting boosted and sent out to more people because you're getting stimulated audience commenting on it, some more of your connections are seeing that post. They're the people you are connecting with from those events in the last weeks and months. So you're just putting them top of the conveyor belt, if that's right, if that makes sense, and they kind of start filtering down and seeing the content more and more. So it's a beautiful way to do it and to minimize wasted time with people who aren't even active online.
Yeah, no, that's, gosh, very, very extensive. There's a question here that says, how can you, well, this is my question. I just try to dance it up with someone else's question. How can you use LinkedIn's messaging and in-mail features to initiate meaningful conversations and convert leads into customers?
Okay, so I'm going to soapbox here on a particular style of communication. All of you listening, if you just imagine for a second, you're watching your favorite show and then a commercial break comes on. Think about what your brain does. It instantly goes, oh, advert, switch off, mobile phone comes up, or I'll go and get a cup of coffee or something like that. You're just disengaged completely. Now apply it to the news feed. Imagine a post comes up that says sponsored or promoted. What's your response now? It's the same. It's like, oh, ignore that bit. You don't even know what these adverts are now because you've conditioned yourself to switch off. So even though you look past that post, you can't remember what it was because you see promoted or sponsored and you put it into a box of, it'll try and sell me, therefore disregard. Now, this is why this is important. The two ways you can connect to people and send the messages are a DM style connection note, which I'll cover in a sec, or an in-mail. Now, with an in-mail, which is basically a LinkedIn email, you can send someone you don't know you're not connected to an official message, and that will, when they receive it, it will say something like in-mail from Sales Navigator, which has the same effect on people as promoted or sponsored or commercial break. It's, oh, here's a formal, probably paid for message. It's formal and therefore probably they're going to try and sell me, therefore disregard. It might get read, they sometimes do, but the conditioned response a human would have is, that's probably going to waste my time, disregard. So how do you go under the radar? It's the other type, the connection note. Now, if you're in the app, so at the time of doing this live stream at least, if I go to my mobile or iPad and I find someone I want to connect with, if I hit connect, it just sends a connection a connection request, and that's it. Now, I don't want to do that. If I go to the website instead, so actuallinkedin.com, and I click connect on someone's profile, it doesn't just send a connection request straight away. It gives you a pop-up, do you want to send a note? The answer is yes. I hit yes, and I get up to 300 characters, which is good, because now I have to be concise. Anyone who has a problem with 300 characters writes too much. And the thing you've got to remember about selling at the start is you need to take your time and not try and be efficient. What I mean by that is people are like, I'm going to say hi, ask to connect, tell them about my story, and give them like a link to my webinar as well. And you're trying to be efficient, but what you're doing is you're doing too much. You can't do all that on the first interaction. You don't tell someone your life story when you first say hi. If you meet them at a bar, you just say hi and ask how they're doing, and you go from there. Now, I'm not king of dating tips, but start small. So the point is, I want to send a quick connection note, give them a reason why they should respond, and when they do, then we can take it further. And I've given an example already. Hi Jacob, I see you're going to the social selling event on Thursday. I'm going too, would love to see you there, hope we can connect. Sure, connect, and that's it. So go under the radar, don't use in-mail, use the connection notes. It feels natural. People respond to it far more, and it's because of that conditioned response. I know I'm going nerdy on psychology, but that's the reason behind it.
No, it's good to go nerdy because it's very practical, and if people can apply it right away, then that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know that we're quite fast spent with time, but just going to fire a few more questions over to yourself, Richard. So what are the most effective ways to showcase your expertise and thought leadership on LinkedIn and build any level of credibility before attracting potential sales?
Yeah, I think what we want to do is let people into us a bit, and that doesn't mean I have to give lots of sob stories and vulnerability and talk about my past. What it is I need to write in a way where people can access it. So I write in a way that's not, particularly street, but it's also not overly formal. I'm just writing normally like I'd speak to you. So that's a really good start point. But another thing to do is elect to give yourself permission to be the thought leader or adult in the room. Don't wait for someone to say, oh, that person's great, they should be, the expert in their space. Just tell yourself you are. You probably know more about your thing than the people looking at you. You certainly know more about the thing you do than those who would buy from you. So play that part. And so it's crucial to look at it like your conversation starting. That's what LinkedIn wants from you, and that's what will get you good distribution of your posts. But in terms of warming an audience effectively, you need to take on that role of someone who has a level of stridency and wants to profess to a degree, here's how I think things are. And we want to be careful, obviously. We need to let people in and recognize that there are different opinions out there, but you should feel strongly about some things. Now, I don't want to go too much detail about what things aren't right, but what things you should be doing is saying, here's why certain approaches or models don't work as well as this approach instead. And you're simply speaking from a place of experience. So that should really feed through all of the posts you do, in the sense that your tone is someone who is sure about what they have to say. Not, I'm not sure, but this is my opinion. I just want to say it's my opinion, and I believe this, but I may be wrong. Like, we don't want to be that kind of beta position. We don't have to be overbearing and crazy alpha, but what we do need to do is just be really clear with people that we have a thing we stand for, and don't ever discount the importance of consistency, because consistency combined with frequency, so regularity of posting as well, so most days of the week at least, you do move to a place where people just get used to seeing you as their authority on that thing. And the good news is the way humans work is, it's that term I was just using there, which is you become their expert. Ideally, you want to be the expert, but you never want to be an expert. So what's crucial is you stay on brand, stay on tone, be you as much as you can, but share that you know your thing. Like, show us that you know what you're talking about. And for some people, you just do it for them. It might be my accent, or it might be the way I articulate stuff, or whatever it might be. It might be for some reason that I resonate with that person watching me, so I become their expert. And there might be someone who is cheaper, better, more experienced, better looking, cooler accent, better dress sense, whatever it might be, but they still dig me because of that thing that did it for them. So just remember, the good news is there'll always be people for whom you are their expert, and we just need to, that's kind of the really important reason why we should be consistent, because it gives them a chance to really hear that. So it's not the most direct answer actually to that question, but what's essential is we're giving ourselves permission to go, do you know what? I would know more than the audience and the buyers. As a result, I need to make sure that I play that role, because that's what they're really buying. They're buying, sure, your product or service, that's the device, but they're buying that feeling also that you know what you're doing. Otherwise, they'd be nervous about giving you money, and that needs to be a bit more reassuring.
Yeah. On the verge of rounding up soon. Before I ask any other audience questions, there's this thing that I like to do called the persona game.
Okay.
And the persona game is where I build a character and I shoot you a scenario to see what you would do if you were in that person's shoes.
Okay.
So my name is Betty and I sell cupcakes.
Okay.
And I want to grow an audience, and not just grow an audience on LinkedIn, but I want to let LinkedIn know about what I'm doing. What should I be doing first and foremost on this platform as a cupcake seller, or as someone that sells a product, or as someone that sells a service?
I'm smiling because there's an incredibly similar scenario I've just helped someone with. So it wasn't hard enough, but there we go. So the way you need to do this is job one, sort out your profile. Remember, attraction, traffic, conversion. So when we are having people in the form of traffic from that attraction in the content starting to look at our profile, we need to have a place for them to go. So where are your links? Have you got, your URL saying click here to buy a cupcakes, or click here to put an order in, or something like that? Make sure you're ready to receive them. Job two, start putting out your content. But a business like that, a perfect example, there's a business in Leeds here in the UK called The Biscuitery. So shout out to Saskia and Lisa, and they make biscuits. And what they did was they found people like me with an all right following who have an audience, and they started sending out little packs with the biscuits. Now, you might think that that's a beautiful way to start, but what they also did was they put people's faces on and their names on. So I had Richard Moore branded biscuits. So what happens then is the narcissistic / ego-led content creator starts going, well, this is cool. Guess what the next day's post was? It was this, especially for me who talks about conversion, it was, guys, here's how you get attention. Put out a bit first. And what's interesting, I remember the first, when they did that and I wrote a post, someone wrote something like, in the comments, something like, that's something, I can help with my, they kind of tried to pitch a bit. They wrote something like, I can help with my websites, Richard. I might do something like this too. And I remember writing, I don't want to be rude, but I was like, that's the difference. Rather than you might, like if I'm showing an interest, just do it. And so what was really great was that they were finding people's offices and just sending them these packs. So it started with my friend Tarek. He received one and he posted about it. This is just classic influencer marketing techniques. They then came to my London event in January. They found out who was speaking on the panel, and they made little packs. There's like 4 biscuits with the name of the person and their logo. All of those superstars then posted about how they love the biscuits. And so what they're doing is they're tapping into network effect. And if you're trying to get off the ground, you've got to ask yourself, who are the people who I might be able to help or stimulate or get using my service or product? It's a really simple way to step up a level, is standing on the shoulders of others. I did it in a slightly different way by doing collab calls. So I found a fairly decent influencer 5 years ago when I was nothing, and I found someone who maybe had 30,000 followers, connected with them, was a decent guy, supported them, and said, hey, would you jump on a call? Jumped on a call, recorded it, they said something witty, and so did I, and I clipped that and made it into a video, and of course, tagged them, they showed up, that collab turned into some of that network seeing me, and then we go on again. And so just once a week I was doing things like that, and just putting out a bit and using the hard work of others is the way forward. Like the biscuit, they're in the news, they're on BBC News recently as well. Like they're getting all of this clout. Meanwhile, next door there might be another biscuit making company, and they're like, seriously, we're getting nowhere here. But it's because this lot decided to just reach out and work with all of these other people who have put a lot of effort into building their network as well. So maybe there's a good example. But like I said, that first step's crucial. Imagine if they hadn't bothered setting up their profile. Then they're suddenly getting all the traffic, but no conversion because they haven't got themselves set up to receive it.
Yeah. So do you think all sorts of businesses should be on LinkedIn? Because people are showing precedence with obviously TikTok now. People have got precedence on Instagram. Is LinkedIn a stable in what they should be doing as well? Especially with what you just said, an example you just gave.
I find it laughable when agency says, "Oh, we'll promote you on all the social platforms. We're serious about it." Or they mention them all, but they don't even cross their mind that they should be on LinkedIn as well. If you're doing B2B, you have to, because it's the world's #1 business-to-business platform. That's a fact. And like, especially if you're doing, if you're selling to businesses, all the people you'll ever sell to are here. There's all the lovely stats. Something like 41% of all millionaires are on LinkedIn. And so I don't want to diminish the value of the other platforms, but if you're doing B2B, why wouldn't you be on there? It doesn't make sense. If you're doing B2C, you need to consider it. So for instance, my brother-in-law is a locksmith who works in like a 60-mile radius around his house in East Anglia here in the UK. He was like, should I be on LinkedIn? No, because you're going to get viewed by people all over the place, and that probably won't help you as much. But, you know, he's on Google and he's on, Facebook ads and stuff like that. But you know, you just got to think about it. If the buyers are here, which they tend to be, it's kind of crazy to not make use of the platform, especially given how, this is the big takeaway again, is like there's this such a generous algorithm, because relative to the other platforms, so few people are posting compared to the number of people who are looking as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. Gonna shoot a few audience questions.
Quick fire
and then
round.
ask Richard to wrap up with his thoughts, his final thoughts. All right. So here we go. What are your views on repurposing content?
I do it all the time. Out of 7 posts in a week, 4 or 5 are reposted. So just do it. It's madness to try and be creative every day. Go back 5 months, find a post that's dead, gathering dust, doing nothing, and repost it. Don't just post your good stuff. Post the flops as well, but rework them. I post all the time posts that were like rubbish in performance, but had a good idea, and I just rewrite the start so a better hook, and they perform well. So yeah, good question. Absolutely you should, unless you desperately love being creative every morning or whenever you post. I would strongly advise it's part of your process.
That's good. That's good. Does the number of your connections or followers influence the algorithms when you post?
Not really. But what happens is your post goes to a small percentage of your followers and connections, and so obviously you have a bigger following, it tends to be hit by more people. It helps if you have a greater following. However, like, don't sweat it. I've taken 5.5 years to only get to 73,000, right? So you might think that's a lot. It's not. Plenty of people do 100,000 in a year. And it's because I don't focus on followers. I'm focusing on getting some people looking at me who are right, and then nurturing the individuals, because that's how you get high ticket sales. It's not hoping you get a bunch of followers. This narrative of more followers equals success is a very dangerous poison to take, because over time we focus so much on follower count that we end up being blinded by anything else, and we just end up trying to get followers all the time, and we're not focusing on nurturing the one-on-ones we could get into that turn into deals. It's so essential. You don't sweat it with followers. Add them as you go. As you get people accepting your connection requests, they auto follow. So that takes care of itself. The main thing is you write something stimulating. When people show up, you get into the messages, and that's where the deals come from. So especially anyone doing lower volume, high ticket selling, this is the game. It's not followers. It helps, but it is not going to directly correlate to business unless you get into the weeds and start working with the people who are showing interest.
Is it beneficial to connect with everyone and anyone to increase connection numbers?
No, because there's no value or nobility or medals issued for having a higher connection number. Also, the connections you have max out at 30,000. Connecting with everyone is confusing because what happens is LinkedIn's like, okay, we'll send your post to all these randoms. And so I need people who need my service because they probably are using, like they're using, for instance, content to try and sell their business. So if I get a random pipe welder in South Africa looking at me, well, that's not ideal. Also, if I'm connecting with every single person who I come across, and some of them are in regions of the world where the currency won't convert for my prices, now I've got more wasted time. And what I want to remember is that there are no such things as individuals anymore in terms of profiles. They all have their own network. And this is the big takeaway there, is that if I have a connection that looks at my post and engages with it, some of their network will see it too. So if I'm targeting CEOs in the US and I'm connecting with not CEOs not in the US, then when the not CEOs in not the US engage with my content, some of their also irrelevant network are going to be seeing it. No use. So stay on point, lean heavily into the demographic you want. Big numbers aren't necessarily good numbers. Unless it's your bank account, then it's a good number. I'm just being real. Sorry.
Like
Stripe notifications and PayPal notifications are far more stimulating than a higher follower count.
I'm gonna use that as a tweet, and then I'll tag you in that.
You should. I'm right, by the way. I'm right.
Got a question here. You're definitely right. Should we be in creator mode, or does it matter? Or does it
If
not
you're
matter?
doing content, get in creator mode, because what it does is it changes your profile to be more laid out for receiving people who are interested in your content and building a following and a brand and so on. If you're trying to get a job, well, you might not, because if you're not posting, but actually I probably would still anyway. And the reason why is because if I want a job, I should be posting content to get my name out there and so on. So I strongly advise it, and you get a lot more out of it. And I'm presuming that question comes from someone who might be using content. There's very little downside in it compared to not having it on.
Yeah. Apologies for everyone that's probably tuned in during their lunchtime, and this is like overrun lunchtime. But literally, we've had so much questions to get through. Richard, your top 3 bits of advice for anyone looking to be successful on LinkedIn.
Okay, so remember that you need to be set up to receive people. Fill out all the sections on your profile. It's simple as that. You become all-star rating by just filling out all the sections. It's just a really healthy thing to do. Put up the banner, put in your links and so on. Just set yourself up. Number 2 is create attention. If you have an opinion on something and it relates to how you might serve people, as we've discussed today, you should be sharing with regularity content on that. You won't get found if you make no noise. And thirdly, the most important part is around conversion. When you've got that attention leading to traffic on your profile, you must engage with the individuals. If you sit there waiting by your inbox, hoping you're going to get sales, all these people are passing under your nose. So get into the profile views, check out who followed you today, connection requests, send the note and ask them, hey, what made you decide to do that? So it's getting in the trenches and speaking to these people one-on-one. That's where the deals happen, because nurture of the individual gets the sale, not just because you've got a big brand or a big following, because otherwise you're relying on other people to do all the work for you, and that's too sporadic to be a business strategy. It's better to be in there. You tend to get out what you deserve in terms of the efforts with the individuals. So thank you so much. Hope that some 3 solid tips for you.
No, that was good. That was good. If people want to get in touch and get hold of you, Richard, how do they do that?
So there's this website, right, called LinkedIn. You can find me there. So if you go to linkedin.com /in, that's how they do it, and then /Richard James Moore, all one word, you can find me there. Or there's the Richard Moore, MOORE.com, and you can see me there as well. So yeah, as a thank you, I'm happy to answer any DMs anyone has if they want, because we've run out of time. And like, no problem at all. Just ping me a message.
Yeah. So Jeremiah, if you could pull up Richard's LinkedIn and then just put it into the chat so that people can just shoot any messages they have to Richard. And we are really, really grateful to have you on, Richard. Not going to keep you for any longer than you need to be. So just want to thank everyone for being here today.
Thank you so much,
and,
everyone.
Sorry, this delay thing's annoying me now.
The delay part, yeah.
Yeah. So UKBF, what we are the largest online platform for small and online business owners in the UK. We help people with resources and guides on what they need to be doing to be successful in their business. And we speak to experts such as Richard in different areas of business to help and assist you. It's a free platform to join. So we're going to put a link to UKBF as well in the chat. So if you've never heard of us or seen us before, go ahead and check us out. If you have any questions for me, as Richard's saying, I'm not a logo, I'm a human being. So ask me questions as well. And we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully soon. Have a great day. And this stream will also be remaining here for the rest of time. So if you've not been able to watch it all the way throughout, you can tune back in again. So we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good day, guys.